Our meeting tonight is now open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Dave from Florida, go ahead, please.
Hi. The other day, my wife and I were driving through a parking lot, and we saw a parked car with its fender lying on the ground. It was very obviously a hit and run. It reminded us of the protection that we experienced several years ago while we were on a trip to the Jersey Shore. We were walking back to our car from the boardwalk, and a woman came up and said she had been waiting for us. She told us that she had witnessed a woman in a car that was parked next to us sideswipe our car and drive off, and she got the license number. So we called the police. They took a report, which I picked up a few days later. They issued a warrant for the driver, and it all turned out well because our insurance company collected from her insurance company. The car was repaired quickly, and there was no penalty to us. We had gotten practitioner help for the trip, and we're very grateful for God's protection and how it all worked out. Also, an interesting tidbit, after I got the report, I looked up the name of the driver on the internet and was surprised to see that she and her husband owned a driving school. Anyway, I'm grateful for Christian Science, to be a member here, for the healing practitioner, and thank you for those great readings.
Thank you. Joanne from Florida, go ahead, please.
Thank you. In this week's lesson, Jesus said to Martha, "Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God?" I've been thinking a lot about that and how it's been true for me since coming here to Plainfield Church and Mrs. Eddy's Pure Christian Science. I was raised in a very strict and comfortless religion and was taught never to go into a church of another religion for fear of being punished by God. However, early on in my coming to Plainfield Church, I recall sitting in a Sunday service. It was only my third or fourth time attending, and before the service even began, I heard a voice say to me, "Joanne, what are you doing here? You're playing with fire." At first, it tried to make me very afraid. But right on the heels of it came another voice which said, "But only good has happened to you since coming here. So how can this be bad?" And that silenced the other voice of fear forever. I was very new in Christian Science, but already I had healings of tobacco addiction and migraine headaches, of hopelessness, loneliness, and depression, and felt more joy and peace of mind than I had ever felt before. And that was just the beginning of the glory of God that I would see in my life, and that anyone will see in their life by believing and trusting in the power of the Christ Science taught here. I'm grateful for Mrs. Eddy for discovering this wonderful Christian Science, for this church that is so faithful to her teachings, and for all the practitioner support I've received here. Thank you for this service tonight and for those comforting readings.
Thank you. Pam from Virginia, go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening. I am so grateful for my membership in this church. I have learned so much through the roundtable discussions, the Bible studies, and the powerful articles that are offered to all on the church website. It has all helped me with challenges that have come to be healed. It has also helped me in being a better and more effective support to my family and my work for our country. I am so grateful for all of this. I would like to also thank Gary for his wonderful, reassuring readings tonight. Thank you for the beautiful music. The first hymn is one of my favorites, and I am so grateful for all the testimonies that we will hear this evening. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight and for the music. Last testimony meeting, I was reminded of a healing that had come about many decades ago as I was daily reading and poring over the book Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy every spare moment I had. It was my first experience of the healing power of this book. I had recently been laid off from my job, which included childcare. I was a mother of a new baby, and an opportunity unfolded for me to care for another baby and toddler in my home. I worked long hours, so I asked a friend who also was a new mother to come help me several hours a week, and I paid her for help. I can't remember how it started, but she asked me many questions about Christian Science and prayer. She had a desire to know more about God, but struggled with many false concepts of religion. During this time, I had myself found that I had many questions that were not being answered by those in the Boston organization. So this turned me more earnestly to the Science and Health for answers. During this time, I read every opportunity I had and found such joy and uplift. I had given my friend a Science and Health and a Bible, and I showed her where to find the 23rd Psalm and the 91st Psalm, explaining that she could read them like prayers. She had several things that were very challenging in her life at the time. I told her what I knew about Mrs. Eddy and encouraged her just to read the book Science and Health for her own answers and healing. One day she came over distressed and tearful, telling me she had taken her baby girl to a specialist who diagnosed the baby with a childhood leukemia. She was to take the baby back for more tests, and I believe it was to come up with perhaps a treatment plan. I felt great compassion. She wanted me to pray, although at this point she still was full of doubt. I did feel a mental protest within that this was not part of God's plan for this child and mother. At one point, a feeling of being very inadequate came over me. I wasn't sure at the time where to start, yet immediately the thought came that this mother wasn't really reaching out for my help, but really to God, and I felt a great peace. A line came to me from Science and Health on page 206 that reads, quote, "Does God send sickness, giving the mother her child for a brief space of a few years and then taking it away by death? Is God creating anew what he has already created? The scriptures are definite on this point, declaring that his work was finished. Nothing is new to God, and that it was good." End quote. I continued reading the Science and Health, knowing that many people were healed reading the book. About a week later, my friend came over to work and reported with somewhat incredulous look that the doctors couldn't find anything wrong, not a trace of the disease, and the baby was in perfect health, and they sent them home. That was my first experience in the power of the truth from Science and Health. And I'm very grateful to have found Plainfield Church, where all my questions are answered, and where we are taught how to live consistently with the Bible precepts and Jesus' teachings, and how to consistently align our thought with God and stand up for this truth and Mary Baker Eddy, who gave it to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
A couple weeks ago, in a roundtable discussion, it was pointed out that God is always speaking to us. And when we listen and we hear his voice and things go well. Well, it reminded me of a situation I had. I was coming home from a trip in horrible rain on a major highway, and I was getting near the exit to my house, and the thought came, get off here. And I thought, no, I'll get off at the next one, it's closer. Well, when I got to the next exit, it was blockaded. So I kept going, and I knew the next exit always flooded, but there was a back road I could take. So I did do that, and I was going down this back road, and a car coming toward me blinked his lights and said, "Don't go down there. There's a car stuck in water. Turn around." Well, I turned around, but behind me, the water was getting deep. At that point, I realized God spoke to me, but I was disobedient. I thought I knew more. So I apologized to God and told him how sorry I was and that I would be more obedient and listen. And I said, "Please help me." Well, I went a little ways and I got the thought to turn. I had not known that there was a road there. So I went down as God directed. He had me turn several times, and I got back to the highway where I got off at the wrong exit and took the right exit as God had directed and got safely home quickly. It was a major lesson for me. You can listen for God, but you also have to be obedient. And if you are disobedient and you realize you made a mistake, God's right there to help you get out of your bad situation. It was a lesson, and I've remembered it many times when I get the thought, and I think I know better. It's God speaking, and He knows everything. I'm just so grateful for what I'm learning in this church, for the roundtable discussions, and for the powerful readings tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Shardy.
Good evening. Tonight, I am sharing my gratitude for Christian Science. Several weeks ago, while reading No and Yes in Prose Works by Mrs. Eddy, on page 10 it states, quote, "The two largest words in the vocabulary of thought are Christian and science. The former is the highest style of man. The latter reveals and interprets God and man. It aggregates, and I looked it up, collects truth about God, amplifies, unfolds, and expresses the all God. The life of Christ is the predicate and postulate of all that I teach, and there is but one standard statement, one rule, and one principle for all scientific truth." I'd like to repeat, Christian, highest style of man. As a beginning student of Christian Science, the word science totally perplexed me. But this paragraph explains it, reveals, interprets, unfolds it, etc. It's wonderful. And then, to express love for Mrs. Eddy, who made all of this possible, from Martha Hogue Vogue, I found in her article called Confidence. This is also a quote. "Christian scientists can best show their love to our leader by following in her footsteps courageously, confidently, patiently, obediently, joyously pressing on, neither too fast nor too slow, but guided by wisdom, keeping the commandments, for this is the only proof of love that abides." I have found this to be very, very comforting. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful for all I've learned here in Plainfield. There have been many lessons I have learned here during these past 8 years. These lessons have instilled in me the importance of being honest, of being loyal to God alone and not person, to use my spiritual sense to listen for inspiration at all times, and to always demand the blessing, just to name a few. This toolbox that Christian Science has given me provides all I need to navigate everything I encounter on most days. And I'm thankful that on top of all that, I have the support of a practitioner in this church to help me see the right path when it is obscured for some reason. All of this works together to ensure I can have a clear conscience at the end of each day and the joyful expectation of good for the next. And those are two things I rarely had before coming here. I'm so grateful for all that Christian Science, this church, and practitioners' support have taught me. What a blessing it is to be a member here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, New Jersey.
Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the inspiring and comforting readings this evening. I just wanted to express my gratitude for this service and for all that we are so freely given in the Plainfield Church in the way of the materials on our website, in the precious teachings and instructions we receive in our roundtables and Bible studies and services, all of which enable us to, as was read tonight from Miscellany on page 210, keep our minds so filled with truth and love that sin, disease, and death cannot enter them. It is plain that nothing can be added to the mind already full. In doing this, we are armed and ready to practice and apply these healing, uplifting truths when praying and watching for our church and for its mission to bring Mrs. Eddy's Pure Christian Science to the world, for praying for our nation and for all mankind. And I'm so grateful for all that I'm being taught here about Christian Science. I am grateful to God and for being taught to acknowledge many times daily that He is the one and the only mind, the source of all good. I'm deeply grateful for our beloved leader, Mary Baker Eddy, for Christ Jesus, and for the strong and steadfast support of my practitioner and this dear Plainfield Church. And I'm so very grateful to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce.
I'm very thankful for an article that we have on our website. It's called Tranquility of Temperament by Peter V. Ross. And when I read through it, it really struck a note with me because in a lot of ways it described what I had been through and how I found Christian Science and found resolution for many things. And one of the things that Mr. Ross included in his article is a quote from Mary Baker Eddy where she says, "A little more grace, a motive made pure, a few truths tenderly told, a heart softened, a character subdued, a life consecrated, would restore the right action of the mental mechanism and make manifest the movement of body and soul in accord with God." Now, who wouldn't want to have the movement of body and soul to be in accord with God? It was like inside me, it was a deep desire to find just this, to find the right mental action, to be restored. And when I came to this church in Plainfield, we were having classes, and our teacher told us many times that reaction is the bridge over which animal magnetism will reach you. So the point being is to not react adversely. It seems like it's the trick of the devil to throw an emergency at you and just watch you spin around and go crazy and do things that shouldn't be done. But, this article by Mr. Ross, Tranquility of Temperament, including this one passage from Mary Baker Eddy's writings, has been very helpful for me. It's given me more trust in God, more confidence in His goodness and that He's always there. And it's done much to replace the fear with poise and thereby feel the presence of God. And I'm very thankful for Christian Science and specifically for this church, because I don't know how I could have learned what I know about Christian Science if I had not come here. And where the writings of Mary Baker Eddy are opened up and illuminated and taught as they should be. Very thankful tonight.
Thank you. Craig.
I thank Jared for those very moving hymns and music that was played earlier, and for the very protective and actually illuminating readings that were given. I've always loved those Bible stories, and there is so much that I could learn from them. I had a healing of anxiety attacks in this church some time ago, and I was having an anxiety attack, and so it let me lie down. And I remembered our teacher had told me that God is nearer than the air that I breathe. Love is nearer than the air that I breathe. My safety and health are nearer than the air that I breathe. And I must declare and have full faith to be strong, to do good. And when I listened to her speak, it calmed me. I felt a certainty that it was true, even though I didn't fully understand it at the time. But it led me to just try to do a little more each day. And led me also to Mrs. Eddy's hymn 253. I never had another anxiety attack. It took me a while to get fully strong. But in hymn 253, she says, "Thus truth engrounds me on the rock, upon thy shore, against which the winds and waves can shock, oh nevermore." And this Christian Science is truth. It's God's explanation of all things. And it certainly grounds me and anybody else that works at it, that just opens and says, "God, please," to be the same way. And there's plenty of room on that rock for all to stand and not be shook, but to instead do the next right thing. Well, when I fully committed myself to applying this Christian Science to healing the world, I never again had an anxiety attack. I thank Mary Baker Eddy for this truth, for our teacher and our practitioners for all the learning and doing that it goes on here.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Benjamin.
Thank you. I'm just feel so happy to be here tonight, and to have the privilege to listen to the reading tonight. What struck me during the reading was in the prose work. I don't think I have heard that before. I think it's my first time. When Miss Sadie wrote about the letter she got from somebody who wanted to destroy her, but she responded with the most loving way there is. I can't imagine anyone doing that much today. I can put myself in that situation, try to think how I will respond, but her life, she wrote a lot of wonderful things. Her books were the best books ever written after the Bible. They were inspirational. But when I first came to this church, I didn't know much about her, but I read her book, Science and Health. I began to know about her when I came here. What struck me, I would say what inspired me most, wasn't mostly her books, her writings, which I'm still learning, but her life, her sacrifices that she made, her suffering, dedication, everything that she went through. Most of them, she went through them before she even wrote her book. They made me want to cry just for love and happiness that I get to know who she really is. And it reminded me about Jesus Christ, his suffering, persecutions, and of course, the crucifixion that he went through. And the disciples and apostles, Bible is full of their stories. Not mostly what they wrote, somebody like Paul, Peter, and James, and the rest of them, but they are suffering for God, for Christ. If nothing can inspire you, just read those stories, think about them. They are the reason why we are here. The CD, of course, is the reason why we are sitting here tonight. Another person I just want to share my gratitude for is Mrs. Evans. When I came here, listening to her, what she went through to earn our independence that we are enjoying. We are sitting here tonight. Her story as well really inspired me when I first came here listening to her. And every day I just thank God for giving me that privilege of getting to meet her and know her for who she is. And if you did not meet her in person, I mean, there are so many ways you can know her. She has a lot of, we are testimony of her work. And many people who are sitting here tonight, who are members and people who are finding us from all over the world, we all share the same story, our love for God. And I just want to share this gratitude. It just filled my heart tonight. And I'm very, very happy and lucky to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
Good evening, everyone. First, have a short note from California. Dear Plainfield, thank you for your outpouring of love for mankind. My cup is overflowing. Much love. And then this is someone new. I'm not sure where she's from. It's an email. Thank you and everyone so much for this roundtable discussion. It's from April 25th about intellectuality being the bane of Christian Science. I've been wondering why my demonstration isn't manifesting, and I learned I have to live Christian Science. I do love Christian Science and grateful for Mrs. Eddy bringing truth to mankind. And I accept this loving truth. Again, I thank all of your input to fill us with the truth of the one mind with divine love. God is our life. I am so grateful to listen to you all on YouTube. In Virginia, dear fellow members, enclosed is my monthly contribution to support the vital work and outreach of this independent church. This church faithfully acknowledges the place of the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, who is prophesied in the Bible, and who, looking to God and following the example of Jesus Christ, has presented to the world the way of salvation, with all glory to God, with grateful thanks for the stand of the remnant. And then a testimony from England. Yesterday I took my 3 dogs out for a walk in a beautiful place which is as close to the description of heavenly as anywhere I could imagine. A wild, lush grassland with a beautiful lake up high overlooking the fells and across to the sea, dotted with gorse bushes and filled with wildlife of all kinds. Heaven for me and for my dogs. My 2 girls get to enjoy all of this off-leash, but our younger pup, Rudy, is less trustworthy and stays on an 8-meter-long line, and so I spend most of our walk either stumbling over the line, trying to detangle it, or constantly dropping the end and running to catch it up. After one wonderful walk, it was just starting to rain. I got the dogs in the van and was about to climb in when I realized I didn't have my phone. I'd taken a call around halfway around, so I knew it had been with me, right at almost the highest, most open point. I immediately paused and knew that nothing can be lost in the kingdom of God. I might not have known where the phone was, but Divine Mind did know, and God is the mind of man. I also knew that nothing is lost that cannot be found, and I remembered Sunday's roundtable about listening for and hearing God's voice. I left the dogs in the van and retraced my steps a little way with no sign of the phone. So I went back to the van and got them out, got the long leash back on Rudy and said, "Okay, pups, take 2." And we headed out, much to their bemusement. We followed the way we had come as closely as possible. Everywhere was overgrown and the grass was so high, at one point I thought to myself, if it isn't on the path, I am not going to see it. And then there it was, right on the path, where the grass was the shortest. I picked it up and gave thanks to God. Rudy then wanted to run up the hill after the other dogs, so I let him pull me, and I ran up the steep hillside behind him. I'm not very fit at the moment, and certainly no condition for running up rough, wet ground in my walking boots. Just as we reached the top, I had to stop, gasping for breath. I tried to catch my breath, but I could not seem to stop gasping, and it seemed to go on for ages, while on the end of the line, exactly 8 meters away, Rudy waited impatiently, wondering what on earth I was up to. Eventually, I thought, this is ridiculous. I get my strength from God. I get my fitness from God. The words of hymn 144 came to me. In atmosphere of love divine, we live and move and breathe. Immediately, I was able to take a huge breath, which sorted me right out, and I was able to carry on as normal. The rest of the day was wonderful. Back at home in the evening, I turned, as I often do, to the Plainfields YouTube channel. As I cooked dinner, I listened to the Martha Wilcox article entitled Body, which is read so beautifully, and it made so much sense in connection with what had happened earlier. It was so good, I kept on having to rewind and sit quietly listening to different points and taking it all in. I'm so grateful to God for everything, but especially for those wonderful proofs of His presence, love, and care, and also for creating such beautiful places for us to walk and spend time with Him in. I'm so grateful to dear Mrs. Eddy for this gift of Christian Science and all the possibilities for good that come with it. I'm so grateful for the wonderful Christian scientists whose works and writings are helping me develop my spiritual knowledge and awakening. And I'm deeply grateful for the Plainfield Christian Science Church for everything that you do, especially the articles and recordings, which are so kindly shared for all and are there ready to comfort and educate, no matter where on earth we are or on what time of day it is. And then Hawaii. My human voice has been off air since I've taken to study Christian Science and the Bible. The more I study, the more the mortal voice has been silenced. Oh, what little it knows. What can be explained when it is the Spirit that is real? Since purchasing the hymnal, I've settled on my favorite, for now, number 136, and though I can't sing, I sing it anyway, many, many times a day. It brings such a comfort and joy, along with Psalms 23 and 91, and the Lord's Prayer. My dogs, cats, birds, garden, and yes, even husband, enjoy listening to me sing off-key, but jubilantly. I have been enjoying and absorbing all the recent roundtable discussions as well as the weekly Bible lessons. What a joy they are, and such a revelation and comfort for daily application. I am watching daily and send love to you and all at the small but mighty Plainfield Christian Science Church. My gratitude and love always. And then this is a testimony from Illinois. I'm holding on to this today. Quote, I will know that yesterday has gone and left no bitterness, and that today is big with blessings, that tomorrow belongs to God, and to realize this today eliminates all worry and pain and trouble and brings us peace and happiness. End quote. This is part of Mrs. Eddy's article day. A while ago, God gave me the answer to something that I was thinking about. I thanked Him, and instead of thinking, okay now, what about this and that? I realized that this was exactly what I needed to know this moment, and what I need to know the next moment will reveal to me as well. What a change! Instead of cluttering my thoughts with what I am waiting for God to tell me, I am acting on what He has already told me, and trusting and knowing that He will tell me the next thing. Like Mrs. Eddy says, quote, to realize this today eliminates all worry and pain and trouble and brings us peace and happiness. End quote. I have a sense of peace and gratitude that I want to hold on to forever. I am so grateful for tonight's readings. Just feel the peace of God, His protecting power. So many wonderful verses, many of them my very favorite. It's difficult to pick out one to comment on, but in the 27th Psalm, where the psalmist David says, one thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in His temple. I greatly admire David in the Bible, all that he accomplished, his short story in tonight's readings about how he dealt with Saul with love when Saul was trying to kill him. Also, the story we all know about David and Goliath. So, for him to say that one thing that he's desired of the Lord, and then he actually lists what I feel are three things, but it's a focus, and that is that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, which was certainly the theme of this reading tonight, to dwell in that house, to maintain our oneness with the Father. I and my Father are one, the Father that dwelleth in me, He doeth the works, and the Father hath not left me alone, Christ Jesus. And then, to behold the beauty of the Lord, to see His beauty everywhere, to know that He is all in all, and to be so grateful for the beauty, as we hear in so many of our testimonies. Everyone, everything expressing the beauty of the Lord, to be holding it, and then to inquire in His temple, to keep asking, to keep desiring to know more about God, how to obey Him, how to be more like Him, how to do the healing work of Christ Jesus. These wonderful things, what a wonderful thing to desire of the Lord, and I pray that might be my one thing to desire as well. I'm so grateful for these beautiful readings, the most beautiful music and hymns, to hear all the testimonies, and to be with such a loving group tonight who are following in the footsteps of Mary Baker Eddy. May God bless you all.
Thank you.